Welcome and good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I want to welcome you to this organizational update. It's on it's regarding cross-border fraud with motor vehicles in Europe. And it is with my good friend Yala Smits. He is the chair for the Council of Bureaus. So if you have not heard of this organization, this is a great opportunity to see a really best practice that's going on in Europe. So Yala is currently a senior policy advisor for the Dutch Motor Guarantee Fund and Dutch Green Card Bureau. He joined these organizations in 2001 as a general claims manager. Before, he had different management positions in National Nederlanden, which led to a broad experience in claims handling, including large bodily injury claims. In total, over 30 years experience in non-life insurance, and he's also been involved in the development of different insurance education and IT programs. For example, MTPL claims reporting by smartphones. Furthermore, a member of the automotive platform with Insurance Europe, and on behalf of the Dutch Insurance Association, and a member of several working groups of the Council of Bureau in Brussels, including the Green Card Management Committee. So with that experience, I'm really excited to introduce Mr. Smits, and hopefully everybody will enjoy the presentation like I know I'm going to. So Yala, over to you.
Thank you. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, of course it is a pleasure and honor to take part in this global conference. And we will present a kind of European view on cross-border fraud, in particular in vehicle claims. So we talk then about motor third party. So it will not be about stolen vehicles, but it will only be about liability claims. I will go a little bit further. I thank you for the kind introduction. To be clear, I am not the chair of the whole Council of Bureau. We will talk about this later. I'm, let's say, only chair for one of the working groups and member of some other groups. Today, I will talk to you as chair of the fraud working group and go a little bit deeper. Yes, you may like to know some other things about the speaker. With the live meeting, I could have said that in the break we talked about football, motorbikes, or maybe boats. But it will be for another occasion. So let's go to the serious part. Let's go to the honest cross-border MTPL claim. That's the focus for today's presentation. I will give you a short overview of this presentation. First of all, indeed, I have to explain what is the Council of Bureau, and I will give you the web address immediately. What is the scope of our assignment? I mean, then our working group. I will give you some context and background information to understand what our challenges are. Then, of course, we have to report our deliverables. And in the end, some takeaways and the way ahead. So it's always the same story, isn't it? Where do we come from? Where are we now? And where are we heading for? So to be continued. To be honest, this is my favorite slide. We will show you the map of Europe, and our system will cover the green, the orange, and the blue part. For now, I will do not mention the orange countries. It will be too many details for now. But please remember, we have a kind of insurance system available today in 48 countries, being Europe or some countries pretty close to Europe. That's the idea. And a little bit further, I will explain the difference between the two different colors. In fact, the blue zone, you may say this is the European Union. And then we still have 17 other countries belonging to the green card system. We will go a little bit further then. By the way, our green card system is a system for an insurance certificate. We do know in some zones It's more or less a working permit, but no confusion, we talk about an insurance certificate. And this system is organized, in fact, by the United Nations, already just after the Second World War. And then there is, in fact, let's say an obligation to have in each and every country the so-called National Insurance Bureau, representing the local insurance market for vehicles. And on the other end, there is the Council of Bureau, uniting all those bureaus. It started with maybe 20 bureaus or even less. And again, today we are with 48 countries. The important idea behind is that you can cross the border without any insurance check. And it is not necessary to buy an insurance policy for the next country. So you take with you your own insurance, and this insurance will give cover in all the other countries. This is an important idea, and this is organized by the Green Card, as mentioned somewhere in 1994. But a similar system existed already in Norway, in Sweden, maybe almost 100 years ago. So again, make it easy to cross a border, take your insurance with you. And then we have so-called two variations. We say the real green card system, and then remember the green part at the map I showed you before. And at the other end, we have what we call the deemed insurance cover. And this means that even without a green card, you can travel from one country to another, because in fact, there is no border control within the European Union. And a green card bureau will guarantee whatever may happen. So in this case, the guarantee will also apply for uninsured vehicles. So to remember the map, the blue zone, you can travel without any obstacle, even when you have no insurance. And for the other part, you really have to show your green card document. I will try to show it for you, to give an impression, I think. So I hope you could see it. It's a kind of test. And otherwise, you can find more details on the website of the Council of Europe. In fact, and I will finish now this introduction, there are two goals behind our system. First of all, to make it easy to cross the borders, but on the other hand, also the protection of traffic and road victims. Because imagine you are hit by a foreign car in your own country, and it is important to know that you are protected as well as you are hit by a local vehicle. So this is a very important principle. And I hope with this brief introduction, you have some idea of our system. Of course, that's not why you joined today. We will have a closer look at our fraud fighting possibilities, challenges, and so on. So let's go to the second part of the presentation. I will show you the composition of our working group. You will see the different countries. It's a habit in our system that there are representatives from the different regional groups. Now and then there are some changes, but let's say this is the backbone of the group. And with this group, we did our job. I think it is not necessary to read out the slide. You can have a look at it yourself, of course. Some background information. And maybe it's not completely new, but I think it is important to stress, as it is very, very complicated to work for 48 different countries, large, small, rich, poor, different cultures, and even the fraudsters, they have a different level of education, you may say. So for some reason, fraudsters are very active in some countries. Maybe it's not the case in some other countries. So there are so many different issues. Probably no issues with timing. That's maybe not still the easy one. You have to see that for the smaller countries, a bureau has only a few people on the list. So then it is even more difficult to have a fraud specialist or fraud fighting. Those bureaus, they hire people with external, let's say, external resources. But again, you have to organize it. I believe probably you will got the picture. And in fact, it's so strange that even with neighboring countries, let's say the Netherlands and Belgium, the rules are very, very different. So it's the case in compensation for bodily injury, but it's even also the case for fraud fighting and all the legislation around. Although in the zone of the European Union, of course, we have some common rules coming from Brussels, like the General Data Protection Regulation, Solvency II, finance and other rulings. So one might say there is some harmonization, but at the end of the day, there are so many differences and you need many bridges to cover those distances. So this is where we started and where the challenges begin, so to say. And what we often do in our working groups, we have different topic groups, not only fraud fighting, but it is a kind of habit to start with an investigation or survey. And we ask all the members, all the bureaus, what is the state of play? So what are all the measures in place on national level? What is your experience? What are your wishes? And so on. We started about 7 years ago. And I think I can say then the world of fraud fighting was rather different than today. Do you agree? It's a question. I think things are really shifting. I will come back to this. From this questionnaire, we learned a lot, even that it was not on the agenda in some countries. It was on the agenda, but maybe on a soft or in a soft way in some other countries. And we also had some countries already being very active in this field, together with the fraudsters, of course. After this, we made a kind of fraud risk assessment form, a list with indicators to help the claims handler to detect fraud in a better way. So the more, let's say, more complicated things to look at, maybe there was no police, maybe it was an accident during maybe it was leased or for the specialist, but for the claims handler, maybe a kind of support to help them and to detect fraud. It's important to say that let's say we started in a very old-fashioned way, not really supported by IT, but let's say by hand, by feeling and smelling, we should detect the first international cases. As ladies and gentlemen, there are no common databases, not in cross-border matters. We cannot combine, if there are national databases, we cannot combine, we cannot couple all the details. So we have to do it for now. It will change in the future. We have to do it in another way. Because of time, I will not report on all the projects and things we found out. But maybe one of the more important one is the creation of a network of fraud contact persons. So today, each and every green card bureau has a so-called and nominated fraud contact person. He is on the list. He is well known in the other countries. So when there is a need for the information, you have, let's say, a protected way to do some proper investigation. We believe it is pretty safe with data protection, as it is a kind of limited network, and of course, under certain restrictions. By the way, when I say data protection, I believe it is considered as one of the main obstacles. At the same time, I believe data protection goes together with fraud fighting. So for a certain period, I think claims handlers are afraid a little bit to exchange information because you may have a fine or you may have other troubles, complaints and so on. But again, when you follow the right proceedings, it's okay to exchange information, and the data protection rules, they give room for the exchange. But again, the exchange you should do in an organized way, so to say. But do not say it's not possible. I think this is not true, but you have to find your way. Maybe this is one of the takeaways. Yes, it is an obstacle, but yes, you can override or combine it in a certain way. Yes, and then the exchange of information. Fraud fighting is about sharing information. I can give you two interesting examples. One day we found out that damaged motorcycles were imported in Sweden from USA. And those damaged motorcycles, they popped up everywhere in the other EU countries. And the damage had been claimed several times for the same case. So when you have this information, you can share it, and of course, then it's more or less in the picture, and you can take appropriate action. Another interesting thing is that I think last year or even the year before, we had a serious flood in the south of Spain. So a few thousand cars were in fact completely wrecked by the water. But then we found out that, again, those wrecks, they popped up in different zones in Europe, also being damaged by a collision or something else. So they use the wrecks for different purposes. And then when you can share this information, it's also a kind of early warning system, for example. And I remember one funny moment that our colleague from United Kingdom reported about a suspicious repair shop. And then we found out this repair shop moved to Spain. And Spain is also a member of our working group. So one and one, you can count. It was a kind of a positive story. The stakeholder context. We see that there are many links when it is about vehicle crime with the registration. We mentioned the wrecks already, and we believe it is very important, and there is, let's say, much room for improvement, that we work close together with registration authorities, import, export, reporting about repaired vehicles, or maybe not repaired vehicles. So in this field, there are many things we can improve. We do so by the Council of Euro. We do so by Insurance Europe, the association of all European insurance companies. Let's say almost all insurance companies or markets. And that's how we work. Now and then we organize a workshop. After COVID, we did more things online. We organized webinars. We do so for local management. We do so for the fraud contact persons and anybody with an interest. It's not completely new. It's mainly repeating the things probably many listeners and viewers, they know already. But you have to wrap it up and to offer it to all the claims handlers, not only for the fraud specialist, but it's important that suspicious cases will come from the normal claim process to the fraud specialist. This is an important point. I think I have mentioned enough. I will take some time to go to the next slide, and I will take a sip of water to give you some rest. When we started, even on national level, many things were not yet organized in the field of fraud fighting. It might be the case in some countries, but later on we saw that in many countries, real national claims databases popped up. To be honest, ladies and gentlemen, not because of our working group, but because that on different levels, the fraud fighting is in the picture. There are some other drivers as maybe solvency rules, risk management, and so on. So the positive thing for me, I have the feeling that more and more, at least in our area, things are happening in the right direction. So many claims databases, it starts with data, sometimes only for vehicles, sometimes for all non-life insurance, and then it becomes even more interesting. But at the same time, it's important to stress that those databases, they always stop at the border. So we have no central database, probably no central database will ever be organized. So again, it's about the exchange of information, about cooperation, and so on. So one of the other theses could be that there is no cooperation possible in cross-border matters when there is not any, let's say, approach on national level. So it starts with an approach on national level, and when there is something there as a database or something else, then you can start to connect. But how to connect when nothing is there? Then the job becomes difficult, isn't it? So more and more we see those claims databases in different forms and shapes. And sometimes this is interesting, sometimes also for the foreign vehicle. So imagine the case in Italy, when there is an accident in Italy with a foreign car, the details of this foreign car will be reported to the Italian claims database. So here it becomes interesting. And I think it is not a secret that there is a test between the Italian Bureau and France Bureau, for example, to cooperate and to see whether the information of this database could lead to certain hints. And when you have a hint, it's more, let's say, more easy to share cross-border and to start deeper investigations. I took a number of examples. I will not insult any other country when I may forgot somebody. This is not the idea, but just to say, year by year, we see more better databases. And not only about the vehicle data, but you can imagine that in some countries, they take on board the data from repair shops, from medical treatment, from different, let's say, all the things happening in a claims file. Then you see, of course, when you have the tools, you will find out that there are interesting things, so to say. You will understand what I'm saying now. This is the next slide. I will try to wrap up a little bit already for you. We believe raising awareness is still key. Maybe not within the fraud units, but again, you have to see that people will activate the fraud units if available. So it is always interesting for us to give those examples to the regular claims handler. And of course, as the regular claims process is often automated, there is another challenge that, again, you have to stress what is the risk of fraud, and you have to find some protection in those automated processes. Data protection, I have mentioned it before, but as it is an important message, I would like to repeat, we believe that you could say with some fantasy that data protection enables fraud fighting. Again, you have to find the right path, but when you do it in a transparent and a fair way, you can exchange information, even cross-border, but again, you have to organize it. As mentioned before, the national approach comes first, so you need a certain hook to cooperate. But I think we can say that with those 48 very, very different countries, we found a way of cooperation. And this is interesting, isn't it? So it is possible to do things, maybe not high level with the central database and fully automated, but we made a start. And we think for sure the job will go on. We cannot say we are happy with the current state of play. So there are many more things to investigate. I will come back to this on my next slide, I think. in particular for cross-border matters, one must say that IT is limited available. So again, you have this database on national level. When you are lucky, this is still growing and still better each and every year. But we have no full connection with one database to another. So probably it starts also with old-fashioned fraud detection by other means, by assessment forms, maybe in other ways. But we experienced and we did some tests about profiling maybe from our own data. But you see that in those cross-border cases, many things are not recorded. So when it is not available in a database, then all the sophisticated IT programs will not bring us further. So we are in the early stage to collect data. It's important. You have to bring it in databases, and then later on, the profiling and all the things that are well known can run. So we are a little bit behind because of this cross-border ID, but it is on the radar and it will be developed in the near future. I decided to give you a kind of positive story. So we see the fraudsters, they become more clever every day, but also the insurance companies. And at the end of the day, we see that there are many positive initiatives, like the databases mentioned before, but of course it is not only about database, it is also about resources, management attention, and so on. And in fact, in our zone, we see some new drivers for fraud fighting. I believe in the past it was maybe more let's say, in contradiction with possible costs and customer satisfaction. But now from other perspectives, we see that fraud fighting is in many countries on a more serious level, with more attention, with more money, with more IT investments. So no doubt we are heading in the right direction. From this positive story, I think I will go to my last slide. It's always difficult to talk to the screen without seeing your feedback immediately, but this is also why this presentation should not be too long, I think. What are we going to do in the next few years? And maybe I can come back once to say what we did next. But again, when you have this network for fraud contact persons, no doubt we have to keep this network alive. You know, people will have another job, people will retire, people have other tasks. So now and then we have to meet, or virtual by Zoom, or even better with a beer in Brussels, and talk to each other and better understand each other. So this network is very valuable, but it will not fly without our help. The connection with stakeholders, Insurance Europe, registration authorities, car makers, other parties will go on, maybe Interpol, for example, other financial investigation units. We have an interesting network to explain what is going on, in particular in our business. Of course, we have to keep an eye on data protection. It is a very serious topic, not thinking light about it. Of course, we update our own history in writing. This profiling thing will be on our agenda when and if we collected enough data ourselves. And again, of course, we will organize meetings, workshops, webinars, and take part in conferences like today to share our story, to hope to inspire some people, to explain what we are doing and looking for further cooperation. So when you like to know more about our story, to the website of the organization, you will find more information how to contact us. To meet or to hear from you soon. and wish you all the best with this very nice conference. Thanks for your kind attention.
Thank you, Yella. So first, I just want to apologize if there was any technological breaks or interruptions in the presentation. Being in this time that we live in, we can't do this in person. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to hear and understand, and there's breaks in it. So with that being said, if you have any questions, you can send them through the process that we have set up here in this site, and Yella will get to them. Because it's not live, it won't be immediate response, but we'll get the questions to him so he can answer whatever questions you have. So again, thank you, Yella. This was a great presentation. I learned a tremendous amount. Having been doing this for almost 30 years, I had no idea of the amount of how many things you guys are doing over there in with the Consular Bureau. And I think it's really, really important work. And I think data and analytics and the collaboration that you are experiencing across the many countries that you do business with is something the rest of the world, like I said in the beginning, can really benefit from. So I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully next year, and we can do this in person and share an update at next year's summit. So again, thank you. You are an amazing person, and I thank you for the everything you're doing to help us fight insurance fraud.
Okay, now thank you again for this opportunity. By the way, is there any possibility to have a look at the recording beforehand, how it will be?
Yep. So let's end the recording now.